Welcome to our Indie-stry chat. The members of Bloodhound Pix and an occasional guest give their no BS experiences with current aspects of the industry. Join me as I talk with Glenn McQuaid, who I think is a perfect model of somebody who uses every outlet they can to get their creativity to the public. We talk about film, music, audio drama, and then even get into things like our favorite made-for-television movies of the 80s and 90s. It was a ton of fun. I just love talking to Glenn. I probably could have gone on a lot more. So listen in and hope you enjoy. Thank you for joining me, Glenn.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So for our listeners, could you just talk a little bit about what got you into working with film and music, which I know you do across everything across the board, but where did your passion start, and a little bit about your history?
Well, I guess I was bitten by the film bug very young. Growing up in Ireland, I was really into theatre as well. I was part of something called the Dublin Youth Theatre in inner city Dublin, which was sort of designed to keep kids out of trouble and get them into the arts. So quite young, I was intrigued by, but knew I wasn't very good at acting. So but in the Dublin Youth Theatre, I ended up doing a lot of sort of set design, even poster design for productions and so on, and really enjoyed that. So it was always in my blood to enjoy the theatrical arts, and also at a very early age I got introduced to and fell in love with horror films. So genre cinema, early Universal, early Hammer horror, that kind of thing, just really hooked me in. And then when it came to going to college, instead of applying to film school, I didn't really have the confidence at the time to push myself in that direction. I went to art school / graphic design school and studied visual communication, like graphic design and so on. And through graphic design, I got into animation. I got into animating title sequences for movies. I suppose some of the horror films I've done or have been involved in are The Roost, and Ty West's first movie, The Roost, also The Innkeepers, another Ty movie, and a lot of Glass Eye Pix productions, like The Last Winter and so on. So through graphic design, I got into motion graphics. I got introduced to filmmakers and slowly sort of built up the confidence to actually be on set and work with actors, which was something that had always been on my mind, but I didn't really quite have the confidence to even talk to many people about it until I met Larry Fessenden, and I just sort of spilled my guts to Larry that I really wanted to direct, as well as doing the graphic work for some early for some early Scareflix productions, which was a division of Glass Eye Pix. I started writing a lot of short story ideas, and then I wrote a short story called The Resurrection Apprentice, which starred Larry Fessenden and Daniel Manchi. And The Resurrection Apprentice turned into I Sell the Dead, my feature film. So it was sort of a long, winding road to sort of finding the confidence and the company to help me get behind the camera and get directing actors.
So at first you were talking about doing animation. Was there any difference that you found when you were coming in at that time as compared to now? And have you thought about, I guess, in the future continuing on with animation more? Are you...
Yeah, at the time, there really weren't too many people that were as familiar with some of this kind of higher-end software than I was. I was a flame artist for a while, and so and also an After Effects artist, and actually knew those programs very, very well, and still feel I'm quite a good typographer. So mixing those two worlds to me was great fun, and it was a natural progression because I'd worked in a visual effects company for years. That's how I made my bread and butter, and just got good at having a sort of a fast eye, so I could turn around work quickly, but also have it be good.
Yeah.
So I think at the time my heroes were Balsmere and Everett, Randy Balsmere, who had done a lot of gorgeous title design for Alien, and really gorgeous, considered, stunning work. I actually met him many years ago. I was actually interviewing for a job with him. And it was a fun interview because it sort of turned into me fanboying out after a while, and we just really got on well and knew his work so well. Also going back to people like Saul Bass, just huge influence and inspiration on me. So those, and just designers and typography in general, is a huge music fan. So music labels like 4AD and the designer Von Oliver was a huge influence on me, as much as filmmaking. I think music and the artwork that and design that showcases music has always been really inspiring to me. So I probably don't know those programs as well as most people anymore. So and I've veered into other things. So I still open After Effects now occasionally, but I tend to use it abstractly, just layering stuff and using weird alpha channels and stuff like that. And so it's definitely a less commercial pursuit for me right now. I, oddly enough, have spent more time dipping my toes into audio work with music as well as the audio drama work.
You bring up kind of an interesting conversation that a lot of people, when they want to come into it, they immerse themselves. If they want to do filmmaking, for example, they immerse themselves entirely in film or even a specific genre, and there's this belief that they'll be inspired and they'll learn entirely from just purely that, which there's also that mentality of living life and enjoying other aspects. I think what you were talking about with music and other forms of art being influential on your work as a whole, what would you have to say to that and those dual ideologies?
Yeah, it's interesting because I am very much influenced by cinema, and for instance with I Sell the Dead, it's pretty much an homage to a few Hammer horror movies. It's part of a subgenre of grave robbing movies, really, and I very much wanted it to be a part of that situation. And I think there are people out there that are so obsessed with film and directors, and they're doing glorious work. So I think it's really, I don't know, it's just as long as you're creating and pushing yourself and getting the confidence to continue going, then whatever works for you is great, For filmmaking with me, some of the stuff that's inspiring me right now would be some of like costume designers as much as directors and just art direction in film and makeup in film and stuff. I'm just finding a lot of inspiration through those lenses right now, and yeah, sure, even soundtracks. I mean, I love that. I love listening to soundtracks and getting inspired. I think there's amazing soundtracks out there for movies that weren't so great. So I tend to just fill my downtime listening to all sorts of things. Maybe more so than even watching lots of things, I think I don't watch as many movies as I used to.
No, I'm in that boat as well.
Yeah.
So with I Sell the Dead, because I've heard you mention it before, and Larry Fessenden talking about it, you accomplished a period piece that is associated with high-end production, or a lot of money and all of that, and you were able to accomplish it, not necessarily in guerrilla-style filmmaking, but utilizing all of these resources. That kind of goes into this idea of what was it like working with, Glass Eye Pix, and of that maverick mentality almost over dealing with an art company that's your more standard entertainment company.
Sure, yeah. Well, with Glass Eye, I mean, the project just wouldn't have happened without Larry and Glass Eye Pix, and I'm not just talking in terms of anyone financing the idea. I mean, the idea for the Resurrection Apprentice, which developed into I Sell the Dead, really came from my conversations with Larry and Larry encouraging me to just write what I wanted, And it was through his encouragement that I found those characters and found that world. And Larry's an interesting guy. He wears a lot of different hats in the film world. He's a producer, writer, director, actor, cinematographer. He does an awful lot. So, and he's a really wonderful mentor and tutor as well. So, I Sell the Dead just wouldn't have gotten made with any other company. It just wouldn't have been made in the Hollywood system. So, it's an interesting question. It was also my first experience behind the camera. So it all, it was great fun. It was also, it was a tough time as well. It was very ambitious. The project started off very, very scrappy. My initial idea for I Sell the Dead was we would make the entire movie on a sort of a green screen and paint in backgrounds, and sort of inspired by what Coppola was initially thinking with his Dracula, that the costume would almost be would sell the period design of the costume in a way, would almost become the set design, and we would just have some very stark painted backgrounds in there and do something like that. But then just the ambition grew as Ron Perlman came on board and Dominic Monaghan came on board, and a little bit money was thrown our way, and it became more ambitious. And I think that we did a great job of making this period horror comedy set in the British Isles somewhere. We shot it in New York City and Staten Island, and I think it looks great and authentic. It stands by its own merits. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great movie. And for anybody that hasn't seen it, I recommend it to them, especially for people that are into horror comedy, and kind of has a bunch of different elements that you can try and attach people to. Well, if they like horror comedy, or if they like period piece, or kind of zombies. Yeah.
It's an anthology movie also in a way. Except it's got the same protagonists throughout, but really it's like 3 or 4 different short stories bound together.
So after you finish I Sell the Dead, what was the transition? Because you end up moving into Tales from Beyond the Pale.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of what was that, I guess, transition going from? Because a lot of times it seems like people, their end goal is always, they'll do all these other little things and then they'll make the movie, and then that's the kind of person they want to be as the film director, and then maybe write a novel or whatever after. But you did film directing earlier on, and now you venture into these other elements that are also really great in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, when I Sell the Dead got out there, it was a strange time. The market collapsed right as we were releasing it, and there was a few issues here and there that I think the movie did well enough with a sort of a cult fan base. And I love that people still know of it and enjoy it. But truthfully, it wasn't like a film that was allowing. I wasn't getting any offers or a major foot in the door or anything. And I had written a few scripts that I wanted to make right after I Sell the Dead, but my ambition is always to go a little wild with the movies, and in terms of ambition and scope. And on paper, they're probably reading like $20 million epics that I know in indie filmmaking there's a way to do it for, under $1 million or $2 million, So basically all of this is to say that Tales from Beyond the Pale grew out of a desire to get content out of me in a way that could happen at all, that could happen quickly, and could also be tailored to the idea that I wanted to write anything and not be restrained by budget, With Tales from Beyond the Pale, we could set a story on the moon or 100 years ago, and have any kind of creature involved, and sort of be as ambitious as we wanted. My writing, even with I Sell the Dead, it's an ambitious piece, So my writing is always. I've never been able to just sort of say, well, look, I'm going to write a very simple thing here that I think can be shot for $10,000 or $5,000, or I've just I've tried, and it's just not easy for me to do something like that. So Tales from Beyond the Pale really grew out of a need to keep creating, you know. And once the first Tales from Beyond the Pale I wrote was Trawler, and once I got that out of my system, I just wanted to keep going, and Larry and I felt we could. Initially, Tales from Beyond the Pale was sort of pitched. I pitched it to Larry as initially an all Glenn McQuaid show. You know, it would be just me writing and directing a lot of radio plays, and he was slightly horrified at the idea that I wouldn't open it up to anyone else, and then I quickly sort of came around to the idea of it being sort of a various artists project, which truly is at the heart of Glass Eye Pix, I think, as well as Larry pushing his own work. He's always been about bringing in the community and shining a light on other people. So really that's what Tales from Beyond the Pale has also become, is just sort of this wild various artists project, you know. Really that's what's happened. Having said that, I mean, I'm in Ireland right now, and we're in development on a feature film, so I haven't turned my back on filmmaking, and I've made a bunch of sort of anthology segments here and there. But what I'm in Ireland right now on is I'm in love with it, and I can't wait to make it. It's gothic, sexy, and really contained in a way, but it's also absolutely bananas. So, of course, the pandemic has put a bit of a dampener on that, but it's fun to be planning a movie and to be chatting with actors and so on, and getting back into the visual headspace of storytelling. Because what I love about audio drama is there's a vocabulary to it as a creator, you know. There's a way that to be really wild and interesting without any visuals at all. But to put on the filmmaker's cap again and to fall in love again with the idea of choreography between actor and camera, blocking and letting a shot linger and using a rack focus or using a split diopter. These are things that I'm absolutely in love with also, so it's been really fun to jump back into that headspace.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more about it. Is it something that you're planning on shooting in the States, or is it something you are doing in Ireland?
We're going to shoot it in Ireland, and that was the incentive for myself and my husband and my dog to move back here for a while. We've been living in Brooklyn for years. I grew up in Ireland, so we about 6 months ago made the move back over here for a period of time. So that's where we are right now.
I guess that brings up a good topic, because for American filmmaking, it's a profit industry, and there's always this complaint of, well, other countries will have, you know, more tax incentive, or they have the film funds. What is really the difference for those that don't know of, you know, making a film in the States versus Ireland, or versus somewhere else that may have a little bit more opportunities for where the government will help fund or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, in Ireland there's the film board, which, well, actually they used to be called the Irish Film Board, now they're called Screen Ireland, and they are great. They are very open-minded in terms of content, and really as far as I've seen so far, have had a heart of gold in helping people find their voice in the arts. The arts in general, but with Screen Ireland, there's just been it's just great for a country to have a body there that artists can turn to and look for advice and look for help. They've gotten some fantastic films made, so I'm delighted to be able to tap into that whole world. My producers have worked with Screen Ireland before, so it's been really nice to be introduced to and work with these people. They're quite young and vital and fun and artistic, and nothing like what a government agency was in Ireland when I was growing up. Yeah. Certainly, they're making great content. I mean, they've made Brooklyn and the Brie Larson film room and so on and so forth. You know, they're making really great work. Just saw Vivarium with Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots and Sea Fever, and you know, those movies wouldn't have gotten made without Screen Ireland. So it's pretty cool that they're there and they're taking chances on such cool content.
So what is the process, I guess, if somebody wanted to be a part of it? Yeah,
I mean, I think that's, I don't know the whole ins and outs of it, but I think it definitely goes an awful long way if you're a citizen. I'm sure that there's other ways to be involved also. But it's interesting also being part of Europe there's a lot of different incentives for countries to work together here. Like I'm not sure if this is the case, but like a movie like Vivarium, I think it was a co-financed feature between a couple of different countries. Or certainly that happens quite a bit. What was a real eye-opener was bringing some projects to Frontiers up in Fantasia, and that was really wonderful for me as a filmmaker to take a project up to Montreal as part of the Fantasia Film Festival and showcase my ideas up there. And I got to meet some really cool people from the States, but also all over Europe as well. So I pitched them my work. So that was a really instrumental period of time that sort of led to my involvement with some producers in this country and with the project that I'm working on now.
Well, I actually kind of wanted to get into a topic that I know we've both discussed a little bit. We've transitioned into making a lot of music, which I know we've talked about, the harsh noise genre. What kind of inspired that, and are you planning on doing I know you've been releasing albums here and there. Are you planning on doing more with that, or even doing tours? Or
well, really, I suppose it started out just as a hobby, and because of Tales from Beyond the Pale and really sinking my teeth into audio drama, I needed to, if I was going to get better at it, I needed to learn a lot of the software. So I needed to learn Pro Tools and Logic, and then Ableton Live were some of the software that I eventually got around to figuring out and doing some online classes in. Also at Tales from Beyond the Pale, there were just times when we didn't really have the money for a composer, and I thought, well, a simple drone or some very simple electronic music would work well with a certain tale. So I started dabbling and making some music, and then just collecting stuff, and then eventually releasing stuff on Bandcamp. Mm-hmm. And so I've always been a huge music fan and a very big record collection, and it's just been a lot of fun to tap into that, and really it's just sort of a way to kind of unwind and keep sane. So it's been fun to see that turn into something maybe a little bit more substantial than what it started out as in now that there's some vinyl releases out there, and some people who are interested in what I have to say as a musician. So that's been really cool. And yeah, I'll definitely keep that going. It's very exciting to me to be able to express myself in that way. And it's just, I don't know, again, it started off, and I suppose still is, a bit of a hobby. In terms of touring, I don't know. I release music as Witchboard, which is kind of an electronic kind of goth vibe. Yeah. And Tales from Beyond the Pale has been invited to a couple of film festivals, Fantasia being one, but also the Overlook Film Festival, which the last time that we were there, I DJ'd, but also did a bit of a live show as Witchboard, and so that was fun. But I don't really have any aspirations in terms of sort of making it something other than it is right now, which is just me kind of, instead of watching Murder, She Wrote at night, I'm making noise or ambient or goth or ska. I don't know, but it's purely just really is for fun, and it's been great to be able to release it, and I love that people are into it.
No, I've been enjoying it a lot, and I think it's a lot of fun. And I've been trying to get my hands on a vinyl when they come. And
Oh, cool.
so I was curious, actually, because you were talking about the idea of bringing up a good point of, spending your nights like watching a show or something. So, but you've been very creative and you keep going in all these different outlets, but you're always creating. What is the process, or how do you keep yourself so motivated and keep creating?
Yeah, I think my training in art school was to always have a lot of different projects on the go. The whole art school thing for me was there were 10 or 15 projects at any one time simmering away. So I guess I got used to the idea that a lot of different projects for me are better than just sort of one or two. So, to be kind of tapping away at some music and also finessing a feature film script and also concerning myself with audio drama. And I just recently started getting serious about field recordings, like just going out into nature and recording some natural sounds. And honestly, I think it's just an ongoing battle to keep the child in me alive and to keep me going and to, circumnavigate the anxieties and depression of modern life by creating. I mean, I don't drink or smoke or do drugs anymore. So this is how I kind of get my kicks and sort of just really trying to have fun, basically. Just really, that's what it's about.
Oh, that's an amazing answer to it. It brings up a good point that I guess inevitable that we had to get into, was about kind of the modern industry and how is it different, and how do you think it's shaping, especially with this pandemic. You have the talk where, they're assuming any movie that isn't a tentpole or event film are going to be more released strictly through streaming or VOD. And so what do you think about the new horizon of what's happening because of all this? Is there potential for it to go back to the way it was, or is it kind of we've crossed that point of no return?
Yeah, it's a scary, somewhat depressing time, I think. I think for the longest time I've felt that filmmaking and fandom have changed so much over the past couple of years. I sort of on Twitter and social media and stuff like that, and it's just the whole thing is sort of has my head spinning in terms of like what I love about film, or my passion for film, probably pales in comparison to a lot of the passion and even anger and angst that's out there in fandom right now. So in a way, I feel like I've sort of stepped back from it a little bit, and I think filmmaking and sort of, well, not so much filmmaking, but the future of enjoying film is probably following along the lines of where it's been going for quite some time, which is, more streaming. And it's I think also the attention span has changed in the last couple of years of audiences, so it kind of breaks my heart a little bit that we're going to see less of cinema going. But to be quite honest with you, I haven't been able to go to a cinema for some time, simply because there's always someone with their phone out or talking or making out or eating a pizza. So it's I don't know, times are changing, I miss the days where you go in and just respectfully watch a movie in a cinema, and I guess I'm too much of an anxious person now where I think I always end up sitting beside the worst person possible, where there's just, it gets noisy and I get annoyed. Even in movies, in cinemas that I really respect, like the Alamo Drafthouse, they're serving like really crunchy food, and like go see a movie like Annihilation. Yeah. And I'm just so aware of the noises around me that, it bothers me slightly. All of this is to say that, I think, streaming is going to become huge, even bigger than it is. But I do miss the community aspect of watching a movie, but that's been gone for quite some time with me, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm kind of in the same boat. When I was doing projection work with the Chinese theater in Los Angeles, I kind of got to a point where unless it was a matinee midweek, then I probably wouldn't go to the movie just because of it became too much as well. Okay, great.
Yeah, I also worked in a cinema in Ireland. This was in the 90s, an art house cinema, and it was a thrill to. It was all film, all celluloid, so it was a thrill to be up in the projection room watching. Oddly enough, one of the early movies we showed there when I was working there was Cinema Paradiso, which is all about film and projection. But things like The Cook, The Thief, His Wife, No Lover, there was some wild art house flicks. Michael Lee's Naked was one that we showed there as well. So yeah, I guess I just missed the thrill of the cinema. I mean, look, I'm probably sounding really jaded, and I hope that it can come back in a way. But it's going to be really interesting to see how we pick up the pieces after this pandemic. I really hope that we can come back a little bit better from it.
Yeah, again, I'm in the same boat as your hope with my hope.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
So normally we'll do a lot of horror related, and a lot of times we'll talk about, for fun, the obscure, the purely independent, and kind of highlight these films that normally wouldn't be seen. For the, I guess, fun element, is there any that you really champion and that you try and suggest to people, or just some film that you don't believe has received the attention it deserves?
Let me see. Actually, there's been a lot of really cool, successful horror lately, so my mind is going there. But I think quite a lot of people have seen it, but I really enjoyed Larry's flick, Depraved.
Yeah.
I thought that he did such a cool job of tapping into the whole Frankenstein story again, because he had also made No Telling years ago. But I wasn't involved in that movie at all, so I didn't know what to expect. So it was really cool seeing that. And let me see, what else? Oh God, I'm pulling a blank. I've been just watching a lot of older movies lately. Just some silly, dumb TV movie trash to veg out in front of. So I've just been enjoying like kind of Lifetime After Dark style movies, like, there's a great Judith Light flick called Wife, Mother, Murderer. I just watched it's actually only available on YouTube right now, but watched that the other day, as well as I'm a huge his name is gone. There's a movie called To Catch a Killer with Brian Dennehy, who I'm trying to think of. To Catch a Killer was a 2-part TV movie from the late 80s, I believe, about John Wayne Gacy. Rewatched that recently. So just tapping into a lot of sort of older kind of comfort movies for some reason lately. I guess because the modern world is so rubbish at the moment, I've been going back to like early 80s fluff.
No, I just watched kind of the same boat. It was a made-for-TV movie. I picked up. It's one of those like 2 movies for $2 type of thing. And it was The Legacy of Evil, or The Possession of Michael D. was the other title, and it was Stephen Lang from like 1995 or something.
Sounds great.
Yeah, Canadian made-for-TV movie that was like he's possessed by a demon that just basically doesn't want him to be married. Type of thing. I don't know. It's weird, but no, it was.
I think I'm such a fan of horror that I've seen an awful lot, and I can't watch the classics over and over again anymore.
Yeah, same here.
I mean, this might sound like sacrilege, but I can't watch Alien again.
Yeah.
Or I hope that will change, and I'm sure it will in 10, 15 years' time. Yeah. But I just can't. I can't watch Halloween again. I can't rewatch these films. The joy has gone out of it. I love them, and the passion for them is still there. But I've been tapping into TV movie horror. Wes Craven made some great stuff for TV, and I think he did Invitation to Hell with Susan Lucci, which is hilarious. So it's great to me that still I can still find these sort of forgotten gems, and I love that about genre, in that there's an awful lot of stuff out there that maybe in the day of its release didn't do quite well, but I think there's great stuff out there that has aged remarkably well.
Yeah, so that actually brings up a good question that I was thinking about. There was a period of time recently with the success of, there were shows like Stranger Things where there was the harken back to everybody trying to make an 80s related movie. But since we are talking about, Fissedon's Depraved, and you wanted to make you were working on your gothic horror film, and even there was Netflix's Dracula. And do you think that kind of these gothic movies are on the rise, or what are you feeling that is like the next big wave that's coming in?
I think vampires are going to come back again in a big way. I haven't seen the new Invisible Man yet. I must check it out, but I bet that's sort of gearing up for the next incredible Dracula, and Frankenstein and Wolfman. I mean, these are movies that I don't think have really been done justice in a while. And as much as I like Coppola's Dracula, I don't think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
I think there are aspects of that movie that are just pure gold. But to me, it didn't quite gel. So, I think, aren't they? I think they're about to remake or finally make Salem's Lot into a movie.
Yeah, I think
so. I think vampires are coming back, and I'm going to be all for that. Fright Night is probably one of my favorite movies, and I love The Lost Boys as well, and Near Dark, and I think there's still a lot that can be done with vampires in cinema. I'm just even thinking of Martin right now. There's just so much wild things to be done, and maybe witchcraft. Who knows? Yeah. I think they're remaking The Craft. There was talk of that a while ago. And I also rewatched Romero's Season of the Witch recently, which I think is a fantastic movie. I think the script is his best writing ever. It's amazing. And that's a movie I know for years he was trying to remake under its original title, Jack's Wife. I would love to see someone like Anna Biller, who did the Love Witch. I think she might be working on Bluebeard or something right now, but I would love to see someone like Anna Biller take a stab at Jack's Wife if it was ever to be remade.
I agree. I think Romero kind of gets, for his Dead movies, that's what he's known for, but with Martin and Season of the Witch, proved himself. I think that he wasn't just the zombie guy, basically.
Yeah, I see movies like The Ice Storm and Todd Haynes' Safe, and I see the influence of Season of the Witch on them, it's an incredible movie, incredibly feminist movie for him to make at that time. It's wild.
Yeah. So I guess what would you suggest for people that are starting out and want to create their own stories? Like, what are at its heart, what is the most important parts of a story from both the person writing it, from their inspiration or what they just want to do, and the story itself?
Well, I think the thing that keeps me writing is the idea of character and location. And oddly enough, location is a big one for me to be intrigued by a surrounding, and what that surrounding does to its inhabitants has kind of come up, especially with Tales from Beyond the Pale. A lot of the ideas for the audio dramas really stem from locations like an old trawler or a haunted vineyard or the West Coast highway in the Ripple at Cedar Lake, or these are the type of things that keep me happy. So I think, they say write what you know. I think it's important also to write what you love. And I think for probably a lot of people who are listening to this are into genre and into horror, to just sort of not be afraid or talked out of just tapping into whatever it is you love about the genre. Whether it be popular or not, I think that's really important, because it's an awful lot of work, and it's a lot of hard work to write a 90-page movie, a 90-page screenplay. It's not as easy as it sounds, and it's just really important to stay driven and stay motivated to be able to get to the end and to write the end. So go easy on yourself and make sure you're at least writing something that you have a passion for, and then stick to it. An issue that I've had in my own writing is that as soon as I start on a particular subject, another idea would come into my mind, and I'd really want to write that. And so for me, writing short features as well as writing, the half-hour radio plays is great because in a way they're almost a race against time. I write them really quickly because you've got all these other ideas nipping at my heels, and so it's just been cool to manage to stick to the one kind of idea, stick it all the way through, and then go back and finesse, and all these other lovely ideas can come in on top of that,
No, of course. No, that's a perfect answer. I couldn't say it any better. For writing, is there a way, because not all stories, of course, are meant to be, you can, but, some work better as audio drama, some work better as film, some work better as a graphic novel or a short story. How do you decide that?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the story and the character are really what matters. So looking back on everything I've done so far, or every story I've written, I feel like they could work in across the board, I don't worry too much about where they're going to land, except I will say this: I think that writing audio dramas has been profoundly liberating as a writer, simply knowing that the stuff is going to get produced, not having that kind of concern or worry that, God, will this ever see the light of day, has been huge. But other than that, I don't really worry too much about where my ideas are going to land. I mean, unless, of course, the inspiration is pure visual. But I don't know, it's interesting. I think you can push your content into any format. It's just best to have the content as opposed to, be worrying about where it's going to land and sort of tailoring it to that. For instance, I'm working on a new audio drama right now, and there's no dialogue in it. And that's the challenge, and I think I figured out a way that it can work and be a lot of fun. But that could have been an idea that I said to myself, look, this will only ever work visually. But I think having constraints is really important for me as an artist, because it just allows me to branch out in new and unexpected ways, rather than sort of feeling too kind of cookie cutter, or that I'm adhering to kind of rules, sort of to branch out and have to think new ways. For me, with this particular piece, to have to think new ways in terms of the audio drama format is really interesting, and I think it's important, especially with audio drama, because I think a lot of audio drama today still harkens back to the kind of the classic radio days kind of vibe, and I think it's really important to kind of push it and explore and experiment.
Yeah, I actually agree, and I wanted to bring that up earlier, which is, it's nice that you're talking about it, is with Tales and with everything you've been doing, it's been really pushing things forward. And when I did some writing on it, the Ripple at Cedar Lake is, I guess not to blow smoke up your butt, is one of my favorite audio dramas, just because you're able to accomplish having basically, I don't want to spoil it for anybody listening, but multiple versions of people, and yet you can you don't need the visual to know, okay, this what's going on or what version you're following. Or
thank you. That was a fun one to write, and again, the passions behind that project were really what kept me going, and after a while, I didn't worry too much about losing the audience. I just had to trust that I could find ways to make it work, and because it could potentially be very confusing, and again, it could have, that idea initially might have been scoffed at as an audio drama. It sort of forced me to approach the format slightly differently, but also the fun, like that was a piece that flowed out of me really quickly. I wrote The Ripple at Cedar Lake really quickly because I just was having so much fun with it, and I think that's another example of just allowing yourself to, I hope this is good advice, but it's worked for me, is just to allow yourself to be entertained with your own work. And I know that there's work out there, and there's people out there that are probably say the exact opposite, or really delve into work that's harrowing and disturbing for them. But for me, it's for better or worse, it's always been about, sort of, as I said earlier, kind of keeping the kind of gleeful child in me alive, and and enjoying and trying to spread the joy that I feel from genre to other people. You know?
I think it's good advice. I always kind of go off of, because I've tried it both ways, and I've realized that if I just write what I'd want to see or want to watch, then it's a lot easier to kind of get things out.
Yeah. Plus, you're going to be spending an awful lot of time with these stories, even in prep and production, and then once they're out there, that's it. They're with you for life.
Yeah. So we're wrapping up. Is Tales from the Beyond the Pale? I know it was originally done kind of as the audio drama, and then you could buy the physical copies, and you do the live events as well, and then they've been transferring over to podcasts for free. Are you planning any more Tales from the Beyond the Pale shows or work once this is all over? And then for yourself personally, is there anything you would like to plug?
Yeah, well, I think Larry and I joked that we'll be doing Tales from Beyond the Pale into our retirement. Okay. So I think we'll always be tapping away at it. And yeah, we've got more planned, and I'm working on this piece right now, and we reached out to a few people and are going over their synopses right now and sort of planning on getting a few more out. And yeah, it's just something that we love, and that I think that, as I say, we'll be doing it for quite some time. I've also written another audio drama show that's not Tales from Beyond the Pale, so I'm trying to find a way to get that out. I'm really excited by that. It's more of a serialized piece, but it still does tap into kind of an anthology vibe where there are lots of different stories and locations told through several characters. So that's something I'm eager to get out, but it hasn't been produced yet. I've just written it, but that's like it's kind of an epic. That was like a 16 half-hour episodes that I've written. So it's going to be ambitious, but it's definitely pushes some boundaries there. So yeah, very excited to get that out. And I can't really talk a lot about the movie that I'm working on here in Ireland, as I'm superstitious, don't want to jinx it, but things are going well on that. So I'd just say I hope people like what's coming next for me.
Yeah, I think they will. I know, I probably will. If people want to follow you on social media, or if they want to reach you in a way that, you'd want them to, of course, where can they do that at?
I don't have a huge presence. I'm on Instagram. I'm on there probably the most. Just as my name, Glenn McQuaid, and sort of putting up some stuff that I'm doing there, and knock on wood, when I'm on set, there'll be some pics from there. But yeah, really just I'm on Instagram and Twitter are the main things that I'm on. I'm also Mr. Glenn McQuaid on Twitter. Okay. Come follow me.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you, Glenn.
Thanks for having me, Craig. I really appreciate it.
Hey, this is Kyle, just dropping in to let you know to like, follow, subscribe, do all the social media things. And we've got another edition of Word on the Street from Gary, who's from Gary, Indiana.
My perfect night is throwing on a robe, making a margarita, and just listening to Bloodhound Pix. So you should check them out too.
Bloodhound Pix podcast is produced by Josh Lee, Craig Draheim, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Audio editing by Kyle Hintz.